Hello, and a very warm welcome back to Widowed AF. You're here with me, I'm your host, I'm Rosie Moss, and I'm always here. Joining me today, I have Holly Matthews. Holly is a former actress, a TEDx speaker, an author, a coach, and a founder of the Happy Me Project. After losing her husband Ross to brain cancer in 2017 when she was just 32, she found herself raising two young children while rebuilding a life that she never expected. Since then, Holly has become known for her straight-talking approach to confidence, resilience and self-development, helping thousands of women navigate life's trickier moments with a little less pressure and a lot more honesty.
What an intro. Thank you so much. I'm always impressed by the intros that people do, because then I remember the things I've done. I'm like, oh, I have done some stuff. That's good.
And we're not very good at kind of, promoting ourselves and what we've done. So sometimes it's nice when somebody else does it for you.
Absolutely.
So it's amazing to have you here. We have been in touch a little bit via the beauty that is Instagram, but it's amazing to have you here in person. So Holly, I'm going to ask you to start, as I ask everybody to start, just by telling me a little bit about Ross, about the relationship that you had, how you met. Give me all the kind of, the nice bits before we launch into the nitty gritty.
Absolutely. So Ross and I's, journey was, we talked about me being ADHD, and it's very typically, maybe it's not typical, but it certainly has its ADHD elements in it. In that I was with somebody else who I'd been with since I was 17. We met in Magaluf, also an ADHD love story, as you do. And I'd moved down to London as an actress, and I was down there, and we ended up, I bought a flat in Essex, in Harlow in Essex. Mostly because it was all I could afford, because I couldn't get on that tube line. It gets a bit expensive there, and I'm from the north, so I was shocked. So we ended up, this guy that I was with, we were very young, and we bought a place together. And the minute that he moved in with me, it was very clear that it was not a good idea, and we just weren't compatible. And it's not even, shade at him. We just weren't compatible, and we were young, and God's sake, we were like young people. And within about 6 months, we were like at each other's throats, and it just wasn't really working. But we were both doing, between acting, I used to do promotional work, so giving out free chocolate bars and turning up at events and stuff like that. Basically, something where you just had to look pretty and chat. It was easy, and it could work.
I did Dairyly Dunkers once at Blue Water. There we go.
Loved a bit of Blue Water. I was often there. It was always, and it was easy, and it was good money at the time, and it worked around acting and auditions and stuff. So I was doing that kind of stuff. And so this one job was for Pimm's, and it was a couple of events, and they'd actually paid me to be a paid reserve, which meant stay at home and get paid. Fantastic.
Nice.
Yeah. So I'm like, fantastic. Like, obviously, like, you get paid more if you go and work, but it was like 60 quid or something to go and stay at home. Like, yeah, I can stay at home for 60 quid. And so I was chuffed to bits, and I get a call in the morning, can you come in? And I'm like, oh, God's sake.
Do I have to
actually work? I mean, I always get more money. So I went to wherever it was. It wasn't where I lived. It was further up the country somewhere. Unbeknownst to me, in Coventry in the West Midlands, my husband, my late husband, he had got into the promotional work himself. And he got into promotional work, by the way, because he was once somewhere where they were interviewing for an agency, and there was all these good looking girls there. And he sat down and went, I don't know what this is, but I want to be involved.
Well, I want in on it.
I want in on whatever is dragging these gorgeous looking women in. Yes, please. So he got in that way. And he was also a paid reserve, and somebody cancelled, and he ended up being on the same job as me. So there was quite a lot of reasons why we wouldn't have both been there, and we were both a bit fuming to be there. We got there, and like my first interaction, he was driving us to the festival from the hotel. So I got in, and I remember we had this back and forth, because he said something, he'd read some book, but then he referred to it being on a CD or something like, I was MP3 maybe at the time. It was like, I was on that, and I went, and I was in the back of the car, and I'm like, so you didn't read it then? So you didn't read it, you listened to it, but cool, all right.
Oh, you were snarky that morning.
I know, it must have been. I was just being like, I don't know, I was just being snarky. And so we were like, quite like, bitey, and because he was also autistic, we didn't know at the time, we were just very, there was a lot of synergy without realising it. Then we got talking on a break, and we also realised there was like lots of similarities between us. His dad was a Premiership football footballer when he was younger. So his life had, I guess, been on not global or anything like, but similar to me. I grew up on TV. So there was a level of platform of an awareness of, I guess, eyes on what you do. And he understood that a little bit. And there was quite a lot of similarities between, I guess, our families and stuff. And we just, if I'm being honest, we instantly clicked. And I was very much a person that was like, when I'm with someone, I'm very loyal as a person, but I could feel in that moment, like, there's something here, like there's definitely something here. And he reckons that he got me because he played me. He'd read the book, The Game, and and I was like, I read that as well, and I actually read it, so don't try and play with me this game. But I still got
I didn't listen to it.
And I remember at one point we were at the and we were on this bus, this Pimm's bus, and he to say goodbye, I give everyone a cuddle, and he didn't cuddle me. And everyone was like, oh, why are you not cuddling Holly? And I was like, I ain't that tactile, don't touch me. Like, I don't know you. Like, you're new. Yeah, please don't. And but we think that planted a seed that, like, I was like, why didn't you cuddle me? Like, how rude. Then it made me chase. But there was just something there, like, instantly. And when I was going home and I was reflecting on life, and I'm obviously a decisive human, at times impulsive. And I remember sitting there and thinking, there's something in this. Like, I just knew there was. And I remember thinking, but, I had a mortgage, a dog. I was with somebody for 6 years. I knew that it would be a shock to everybody. But then I remember thinking to myself, I felt like I was on this train and I couldn't get off. And I thought, if nobody cared, if nobody looked, would you get off the train and would you go and explore what this is? And I thought, yeah. And I thought, well, get your big girl pants on then, because you best finish this. I went home the next day. I broke up with the lad I was with. And then I got on the mega bus because I didn't drive. The mega bus at the time was like £1 or something to get everywhere, wasn't it? I mean, it was like literally life or death, dangerous.
Took 7 days to get there.
7 days. It was like horse and cart. You had to, I remember once being on there, and I went from London to Newcastle, and a guy once told me he just got out of prison. He'd been in for 25 years and he was going to rekindle his relationship with the family and hope they would like him. So that's the level of the mega bus, wasn't it? It was raw. It was like, you had to be ready. So I got the mega bus to Coventry and basically didn't come back. And the shit hit the fan. Everyone was cross with me, and but we knew there was something, and there was. And from that minute, we basically didn't spend a second apart. And we kept saying, when do you think other people are going to get this? Whether people are going to stop saying that this is just like out of the frying pan into the fire to me all the time. By the time we got married and had 2 kids, I think we still kind of like, people
you sure?
But we literally, from the second we met, there was just something there. His friends called us Rolly. His name was Ross, obviously Holly. I think his mum, his family are lovely, get on really well with them. And I think his mum hoped that Ross would find someone who would settle him down. And what he found was fuel to the fire. And Ross, anybody that will talk to you about Ross will have some story of him doing something that was hilarious or inappropriate or saying something that was too far. And I absolutely loved it. And we used to joke and say, like, he could not have gone out with anybody really other than like an actor who doesn't have an embarrassment gene, because they're just used to doing stupid stuff. And I think for me it was like finding somebody who was honest. That's what I valued more than anything. It was that you knew where you were with Ross because he just said it, good and bad. So I don't think he could have went out with somebody that was like quite a gentle soul, I guess, who was easily offended, because you would have been easily offended. But he would say, and I would often correct him on it, because I'd say, I think that's something other people should say, but he would say, I'm one of a kind. And I'd be like, well, you are, but like, I think that's for other people to say. Like, it's not really for you to say. But he really was. Like, I don't think there was a person out there that was like him. And he lived his life in such an authentic way. And yes, that meant that he annoyed a lot of people because it didn't always fit how they wanted him to behave. But for me, I value that so much. And there wasn't a second when I left the person I was with, there wasn't a second when I regretted it. There was not a moment for it. Every day with Ross, with me and him, there was joy and there was fun. He used to say, those that play together stay together. And we literally, like, it was constant adventure. We would decide to do something and we would go and do it. And when we had kids, you know, that was like the icing on the cake, that suddenly we had these little people that were you know, part of that journey. And even when we got married, like, we didn't tell anyone. So we were like, oh, should we, like, I didn't really want all the fuss of everything and the planning, just a lot in it. And, you know, my parents got married, they were punks, so they got married, like, yeah, they, like, back in the day, that was like renegade. I know it's not now, but like, my mum came from like, you know, Catholic, Irish Catholic background, and it was quite a big deal to like have her get married in a bright red wedding dress with cropped red hair, and my dad in a zoot suit, and like, so like, they were quite cool. Like, so like, my dad was a bit annoyed that I didn't tell anyone when I got married, but I was like, you can't bring me up like that and then just expect me to do a traditional wedding and go with the flow, the status quo. But we just like, we messaged a few people who we'd done promotions with, who then became good friends, and just said, we're going to get married, can you come and be witnesses at the wedding? And they were like, yeah, okay. So we went down, and I got Ross to, it's like printing him like this, and I got him to do a red wedding dress on a white hoodie, just as like a little nod to my parents.
Homage to your mum, lovely.
And then Ross wore his dad's football. He was a Sheffield Wednesday fan, and his dad played for Sheffield Wednesday, so he wore his dad's football shirt, like top. And we got married, and then we texted everyone, and we went for a cup of tea, and then we just sort of went back to doing some work. And everyone was like,
just went back home.
Yeah, everyone was just like, I think they thought it was an acting job for me because I was still acting. So they were like, is this real? I was like, is this an acting job? Yeah. So yeah, and that's how it was with me and Ross. It was just an adventure. And I think for Ross, like, he dealt with everything as like direct. And I remember he once said to me, I've done everything I wanted to do. Like, if this is it, then I've done everything that I wanted to do and I regret nothing. And I just don't think that a lot of people live to 100 and that they would be able to say those things. And I think that's, for me, the thing that makes me feel like that's how we should live, in pure honesty. Yeah. And that will repel some people, but it will also attract the right people. And I think that's, for me, a good guide in how I parent and how I live.
Yeah, and it's so true, isn't it? When you are kind of your authentic self, you do attract the people that like you for your authentic self. And we spend so long putting on this kind of mask and people pleasing and being what we think other people want us to be. But all we're attracting then is people that are attracted to that version of us, which isn't real.
Absolutely.
I want to be more Ross.
100%. And like, even when, like, I remember he said to me, and we actually put it on them, what do you call them things? The funeral cards. I don't know what they are.
I want to say order of service, isn't it?
It might be, but I always get the names wrong, and I say like after party for the wake, and I'm like, it's not really after party, is it? Like, I'm like, no, the after party. Like, it wasn't really a party. But like, on that we just put, like, he just said to me once, like, just tell them I was all right. Tell people I was all right. I was a good bloke. Like, and that.
Did you just put that? He was a good bloke.
I just put a quote, Ross. I would tell him I was all right. Tell him I was a good bloke, and he was. Like,
I love that.
He was like somebody who would say, like, you know, if anyone's to get, like, he had brain cancer. We won't talk about that, but he was like, if anyone's to get it, it would be best being me. Like, I can deal with this. Like, and it wasn't performative. Like, it was just, he was very black and white. It was typically autistic in his approach to it. He was just like, I'm dead or I'm alive, and while I'm alive, I'll be alive. And I think we can all learn a lot from that. Gosh. And I think you said there about, you know, the kind of the masking and the people pleasing, all of that. Like, I often say people pleasing, as much as it's uncomfortable for us to think of it, because the motivation isn't to anything negative. It's coming from a lot of fear. But when we are people pleasing, we become liars and letdowns. And I know that's uncomfortable, but we're lying. It's not who we are or what we want. And we become letdowns usually because we end up overbooking ourselves, and we end up letting people down because we can't just say no to something or say yes to the right things. And the more we can lean into finding how we navigate that and get okay with or at least deal with the discomfort of saying, I don't want that, I don't want to be around that. I think the moments in my life when I've done things truly because that's what I wanted, and me getting married and me leaving my first boyfriend were two of those real, like, sort of obvious examples of that. people around me when I got married like that were like, oh, even people that love me, you'll regret it. And I'm like, I didn't, and I
Yeah.
don't. It was brilliant.
And
We had a good
also, let's
time.
be honest, you can always have a big party if you want
Well,
to
we
as
ended
well.
up having a party because my dad put on a party, and my dad was like, "I'm putting on a wedding party," and I was like, "Well, fine, I'll come. Like, if you want to have a wedding party, I'll come to it. I'll
I'll
come."
turn up.
Yeah, and he was like, "I'm wearing a suit, I'm wearing a top hat if I want to, and I'm making speeches. It's my fucking party." And I was like, "Well, do what you want," and there's no pressure then because it's not really a wedding. People can come, or they don't have to feel the pressure for it, and it'll just be a laugh. That was fine, and so we did sort of celebrate it with people afterwards, but there wasn't the pressure, and it felt more still on our terms, how we wanted it. We still got to have that moment where we just wanted to be married. Like, we loved each other, and we just, our best moments were when we were in a room on our own. I mean, like, just sat doing nothing. And we always
Yeah.
used to say, like, we would be belly laughing if it was just like us without the distractions. We were never bored of each other. Like, that's it. And I think that's often challenging for widows when you live like that. There was, and I know there'll be different versions of that for some people, there was more of a tumultuous relationship, and it doesn't diminish the pain that you experience. But we didn't have that. We were friends, like, we were mates as well. Like, we liked each other's company. We were together all the time, not because it was like some kind of weird jealousy, like we can't leave each other's side. We just really liked each other's company. And I think that, that's obviously where the challenge is, that when, like, for me, when Ross died, the thing that I noticed most, and it seems like a funny thing to notice, but like, when I wanted to do the shocked face at somebody's bullshit, when I wanted to go,
Yeah.
there was no one
Yeah,
there to
because
do
you've
it.
got this kind of code between you, haven't
Yes,
you? Yeah.
it was that. It was like, I need to go, what the fuck? Like, it was those
Yeah.
moments of like, are you saying that? Like, and there was no one to direct that at, and that, I've trained my kids up to understand the same look now, but
Nice.
it's just like, what the fuck? It's that look. It was just that. And like, it was those, like, that was the person that you refer to immediately. And for other people, like, obviously, like, Ross had brain cancer, and because of that, we lost Ross before we lost him. So it was a bit more like, because it's brain. Other people, early stages of that, could pretend that wasn't happening because they would only see parts of it. But for me, like, every single moment of Ross I was seeing, and so that wasn't Ross. Like, it was a version of him, but it was a lot
It
before he
wasn't
died. It
him.
wasn't Ross. It was parts of what was left and what his, what the cancer was leaving be. So I think that was, for me, it was long before other people. I was doing that early grieving process of letting go, which I
Yeah.
think those on the periphery don't have.
No, because they are that step removed, aren't they? Now, tell me about the cancer diagnosis. What kind of, I mean, I'm guessing there were some symptoms that led him to seek medical advice, because, men don't go to the doctors just for a general checkup, generally
True.
at 32. So what were the symptoms? Who noticed that there was something wrong first?
So Ross, he was experiencing some anxiety, and Ross was late diagnosed autism. Although obviously there had been stuff since he was a kid, but nobody had anything then. So there was,
Yeah.
we kind of put it down to, because our daughter, when Ross was diagnosed, how old were the girls? 1 and just 2, 1 and 2, 2 and a bit, like something like that. There's 2 years between.
Close together, Holly.
I know. I just thought, just keep going quick. I mean, it was completely
Yeah.
not planned.
Get it over and
So
done with.
yeah, that's it. I mean, now they just add each other's throats because they're teenagers. But yeah, so they were really young. I mean, it's only when you look back and you go, how the hell did we do all that then? Like, I don't know, but we just did, as you do. And so the girls were really young. So we had been told by a psychiatrist when Ross was diagnosed, like, it might be worth getting that diagnosis because the fast-paced change of parenthood, it might be worth getting that explored sooner rather than later, because the change for autistic people can be quite challenging. So we initially kind of thought maybe that's this presenting itself and you're fine. But it did feel like, I know obviously anxiety, depression can just be random. Like, it's not necessarily, it can be many different versions of why that happens. So, but it did feel a little, like he was saying, I don't feel there wasn't anything wrong. He wasn't actually stressing about the kids as such. He was a really good dad, really hands-on, loved the girls. Oh my God. Like, he just loved girls. He wanted girls. He was like, I want girls. And he got girls. He was like, girls look after you when you're old. Obviously not needed. But he was like, he was just like, he was like that. He loved them from the second like they were born. And so he was really hands-on. And so there was some anxiety that was happening, and definitely some signs of, I want to say depression, but that feels too big. Like it was just something not right. And I'm very, very in tune with stuff. And I kept thinking there's some, I never thought what it was because I didn't have any experience of that.
Why would you, right?
Why would you, right? And then he started to have these headaches. And at first I'm like, you're just not remembering to drink water, you know, the standard stuff, because that's what it likely is for most people, right? So, and then he started to have what, it's really weird. They're called focal seizures, where you have a seizure, but it's only in one part of your body. So essentially what was happening, he'd have this, what felt like a wave of anxiety, and then his fist would grip for a few seconds, and then he would stop, right? Obviously, like now I have more knowledge and we would have probably explored that more. But initially it was like, it felt more like it was a panic attack of some description.
Yeah.
And when we were going to the doctors, they were kind of agreeing with that. Now, yes, we could look for blame and all of that and go, well, that should have been explored more. And yeah, maybe, but maybe also we didn't push that anymore because we're like, yeah, it's probably just panic. That's what it felt like as well. I think that was the experience.
But you're not going to go straight to brain cancer,
you just don't. And then even when we started to have headaches,
now,
and we started to like, then obviously we Google and stuff, and he wasn't really. And I'm like, it did come to brain cancer, but again, you dismiss it out immediately. It's not brain cancer, like of course it's not. And then these headaches suddenly got quite pronounced, and he had like almost like what they call ice pick headaches, where it was like on the floor with it.
Oh, yeah.
And we went to the doctors, and they sort of said, look, next time this happens, we'll do like a GP liaison thing to the hospital, so we'll get you through emergency, but we'll push it further, it'll be quicker to get through, something like that, right? So we were like, okay. And he was on a waiting list for a headache clinic. And then I was going to do, I mean, the irony of me doing things like Casualty or BBC Casualty all the time during this process. Afterwards, I've said since, I'm like, I'm only doing comedy from now on because we ain't manifesting any more of that stuff. But I was doing BBC Casualty, so I was away for like a few days, and Ross had the girls. And it's really actually the episodes that I did, I was a sexual assault survivor, and it was like
nice and light-hearted then.
You know what I mean? Always the rough, like hard parts. And so this was really intense emotionally, like stuff that I was dealing with in it. Before I did one of the scenes, Ross had rang me, and he was struggling with his mental health, he was struggling with his head, and he actually said to me, I felt so worried about like how I felt like internally, like as in like my mental health. I actually broke up my oldest daughter because I just needed to see her and to feel like I don't want to do anything like to myself. And these weren't sort of active suicidal thoughts, but they were very passive thoughts like that. And, you know, that was obviously horrific. He told me that when I'm doing those scenes, I'm sobbing for real. So actually when I see those, I'm like, I can't, everyone's like, it's really good acting. I'm like, that was not acting. Like I was just crying. Like, and so it worked for on screen, but like, it was a really difficult time. And so then I came home after that. So we'd had that sort of episode, and like a few days after that, he had this really bad headache. So again, I've rang an ambulance and I've just said, GP liaison, we need to get him straight in. From that minute, I was like, something needs to be done. Like, there's something wrong. There's something going on. Again, still didn't think anything remotely. I thought we would probably end up getting, this is like a mental health issue. This is severe anxiety. This is something to do with, I thought it was going to be that route, right? So we go into the hospital, we're being, you know, pushed around all day. They're saying migraines and all of that stuff. And I'm like, I just kept thinking, like, just scan his head. Just do it. Just scan his head, like, see what's going on, like, see if there's something else. Like, again, even though I was saying scan his head, I wasn't thinking look for a tumour. I just wasn't. I don't know what I was thinking. I just kept saying it. And I was like, no, you need to keep going with this because something's not right. And they kept coming back, and they weren't really finding, you know, doing bloods, and they weren't really finding anything that was obvious. Then they scanned his head. We were there all day, and it was really late on in the day. In fact, we'd ordered a curry. Like, we were just like sadly bored. His mum was there with us, and then the curtains of the little bay that we were in, two doctors come in, and without warning, it was, okay, Mr. Blair, we found an egg-sized tumour in your head. We will see whether we can do treatment. We will see whether we can do chemo or radio. But if there's nothing else that we can do, we'll just keep you comfortable. And I was
Jesus
like,
Christ.
what the fuck? And I felt like my body was being sucked into the ground. Like it was like a dissociative, like, oh my God. And I looked at his mum, was probably not the best thing to do. I looked at his mum and she's like white. I looked at him and he just went, okay, what's next? And that was it. And that's how we dealt with it from that moment. It was, okay, what's next? We were very pragmatic, very direct about it. Let's just see what's next. And what was next was brain surgery. So we went, we did brain surgery. I mean, we did all the, what was next was testing to see whether it was cancerous. And basically at every stage of, okay, let's hope it's not cancer, even though a tumor in your head, regardless of it being cancer, is fucking bad. It's literally in your brain. And his was, but yeah, at every stage it was cancer. Okay. And then you're like, please let it be something that's not like it's fixable. Please let it be that. It was grade 4. It was rare. It was normally found in children. It was normally found at the back of the head. His was at the front. So literally, if you think about looking for a cure for brain cancer is like looking for a needle in a haystack, they weren't looking for the needle for this. Like, this is just, we don't know. And I remember like one of the most difficult things for me, and this is probably because I guess I'm very aware of body language and, I guess emotionally intelligent. In fact, that's what Ross would say to people, which is hilarious. Ross would introduce me, which is quite weird. He would introduce me as, this is my girlfriend, or this is my wife, Holly. She's the most emotionally intelligent person I've ever met. And people would be like, okay. Like autism. I'm like, yeah, Ross, people don't know what that means. Pop it. Like they don't know what you're saying when you say that. And it's like, she's the most emotionally intelligent. Speak to her. Or I would translate for him a lot of the time with autism. Like when he wanted to say, you fucking assholes, you fucking pricks, blah, and he would say, right, Ollie, explain it to them what I mean in words they're not going to get annoyed about. And then I would say, what Ross means when he's saying that is that he's not very happy about what's happening right now. So we did have that sort of thing. But when we went to the first oncologist, and I have spoken on stages about this, I've spoken to brain surgeons about my vehement dislike of this, and I know some of your listeners will have had similar experiences, but we went in and the oncologist and the whatever the other one was, sidekick we'll call him, the oncologist was basically slumped in his chair when he delivered the news that it was grade 4 brain cancer and it was 50-50 chance of surviving 5 years. And I just kept thinking, sit the fuck up. Why are you delivering
Have some fucking
respect. Why are you delivering me news like this? I don't give a shit that you've delivered it a million times. I don't care. I've heard this the first time. Ross has heard this the first time right now. Why you sat like that?
Where's the humanity?
Gross. And we were lucky enough, I say, that we were actually moved to Birmingham. This was at Coventry, and we were moved to Birmingham Children's Hospital because they had more experience of this particular type of tumour. And we then saw a guy there called Dr. Spooner, and he was brilliant. He was actually really wonderful. And I remember the first experience with him, we came in and Ross went, so why have I got brain cancer? Like, why is it at the front? It's normally at the back. Like, what? And he just went, he leant in, firstly, and he went, Ross, I don't know why you've got brain cancer. I don't know. And to be honest, like that directness and that honesty was what was needed. It was perfect. It was what we needed, and it was open and it was real and it was respectful, and he was brilliant. We did sadly at the end of Ross's life have to go back and see that same guy that we saw at the beginning. He was the one that told me that. So I was standing in a corridor. Ross, we'd gone in, he'd had a seizure, and we had been told that there was potentially some edema, some swelling in his brain, and they were going to look at scanning his head. So I asked him, what's the crack with scanning Ross's head? Like, are we going to do that? And he went, so I'm stood in a nurse's station in the middle of the corridor, and he went, do you understand the severity of this? Ross is dying. He's going to die soon. He's got brain tumours throughout his head. And I went, what? I know.
Hell.
The nurse behind him was like, I saw her face just drop, like how we just delivered it. And I went, I And then I was like, it was like a fog in my head because I didn't know that he was going
Slap
to.
in the face, isn't it? Like
It's just
almost,
like,
I kind of
what?
physically recoiled as you said it.
Exactly. And then his mum and dad were in the room with him, and I went, so I'm just gonna have to go and tell his mum and dad he's dying. Then yeah. And he went, do you want me to? And I went, absolutely fucking not.
Absolutely not, no.
And that was who I was dealing with there. So we actually didn't have to deal with him very much at all until the end of life.
But at two quite crucial points in the journey, like
Yeah.
right at the beginning and at the end, the 2 points where your need for compassion, kindness, and understanding is greatest, arguably.
For sure. And it was, I mean, when I was invited to, well, I did a video on YouTube. So I vlogged during the time of Ross being ill and during being at the hospice, which for some people would be bizarre. But you have to understand that I grew up on TV in front of a camera.
Yeah.
And so for me, my safe space is there. When I was at school and I was the fucking neurodivergent kid who was cosplaying as a neurotypical, trying to be in with a popular crowd, and then going on set was the only place that I could be myself. So for me, it's a comfortable place. It's where I feel safe. That and in the wings of a theatre, like that's my most comfortable space. And so I vlogged a lot about it, and I talked about this experience. And I was very sweary and vocal. And what I said in it was the fact that I didn't headbutt him is testament to meditation, to be honest. Like, you know, fair play to me, if anything. Like, I responded by saying nothing and being calm. Deadly calm, but like, and frighteningly calm.
Yeah.
But
killing him with your eyes.
Yeah, like, and yeah, so I put that, and it wasn't really, in my opinion, a big deal. I've probably said worse, but then suddenly like the Daily Mail and stuff picked it up, and it was like vlogger threatens. I mean, it wasn't all
threatens surgeon,
and it was all like that. But that actually meant that I was then invited by a brain surgeon to speak at this massive conference. And it was literally standing room only. And I think it was mostly filled with nurses at the back. They'd come in to go on, fucking tell them.
Yeah.
And as I was about to go on stage, the guy who invited me said, they're not going to want to have you say this to them. And I was like, I mean, I was still fairly early stages as well in grief. And I'm like, I don't fucking care. Like, I mean, I don't ever.
Yeah. Try stopping me, right?
I'm going to give it. And I basically just said, you know, it's just not good enough. I don't care if you emotionally connect with this. I appreciate that some of you are potentially, you know, jaded with this. Potentially even, you know, some of you are autistic, very singular focused, and you're doing this as a job and it's very black and white. I understand the nuance of this. I actually want you to be that level of genius. However, you need to learn to act. And I don't fucking care whether you connect with it, but sit the fuck up. Learn. Go and have some classes at fucking RADA. Go and do some like lessons on how to give bad news. Like, it isn't good enough for it to just be passed on to the nurses to pick up the pieces of the people that you've just told. Because when I was sat and I had these two old white guys, you know, these old posh white guys, you know, speaking to me in this condescending manner in rooms about my husband, I'm sat there thinking, I know who I am. I'm really confident. I don't care who you are. I will have it out in a debate, and I'm not an unconfident person. I've been in all kinds of different situations, and yet I'm still sat here feeling really squashed. And I kept thinking, what about the old woman whose partner's ill, or the person who's got nobody, and you two dickheads are going to be sat there? And so for me, it was like, nah, I've got to at least speak on this in some way. And that's what fueled me, because yeah, it's all well and good, I'll pick up the pieces, I'll do therapy, I'll read the books, because I'm already doing that stuff, but a lot of people aren't, and you are going to railroad them in the worst moments of their life, and that's just not good enough. So I was able to say that, and I got a lot out of being able to do that. Whether it landed, who knows? But you know, it was kind of a nice place to put a really horrible experience.
Empowering as well.
Yeah, definitely.
In grief and widowhood, about making the path a little less hideous for the people coming up behind us. And there's something, isn't there, about, okay, I'm going to tell you how it, like you say, you don't know whether they're going to implement it, but you feel like you've contributed perhaps a tiny little bit into making somebody else's receiving of this information less awful.
Definitely.
So how long did Ross have from the point of diagnosis until he died?
So we had 3.5 years, essentially. So he had his first surgery and they debulked the tumour, which just always sounded like they were doing it with like an ice cream scoop, debulked. And it crossed the midline, which meant they would never be able to get all of it out. And because it was front, it was obviously those frontal lobes are where your personality is and stuff like that. And I think we were lucky that we didn't really see massive changes in that massively. other than at the end of when we did. And then he had chemo, radio, and all of the treatment. And we had like stillness for after that for about 18 months where it was, you know, Ross often described it. He was like, well, maybe like it's like sort of like a dead, like a tree that's like sort of dead. It's just sort of sat there, and yeah, it could spring up, but it's like sort of there and it's dormant. And I think we always said like, you don't really realize, and I forgot the name for it, which means that there's a technical name, but where it's not doing anything. And we were like, we sort of, as humans, we've heard, it's, you know, when the cancer's got, you want to hear that it's in remission. That's a word we used to hear, isn't it? It's in remission, it's going. That's what was cured. But we realized that actually, if it's just not doing anything, that's actually really good. That's like positive. And so for about 18 months, it wasn't really doing anything. And then it was just before, so his brother got married. And just before his brother got married, Ross had been having some more tests and he had another surgery. And then we were kind of like, in our minds, we sort of thought, right, another surgery, we're going to get another 18 months. Like that was sort of like, I hope like it's going to be still for a bit. But basically within 2 months, it had grown again. So it was rapidly growing. And Ross was a best man at his brother's wedding. The day before that, we had been to speak to like the oncologist to see where we're at. And he was like it's bad. Like basically we could potentially do a third surgery, but they went from initially ticking a box to cure, and now they're ticking a box to prolong. And that was such a massive like shift. And what's weird about that, and this is so fucking like ADHD, but the same, for some reason, The Voice, the singer, like the show, the TV show, got in touch with me. Like I used to do singing. I was signed to Sony for a bit, and I'd not done singing for years. And they got in touch with me.
Didn't know that, Holly.
Yes, I was a pop star for a little. But it was like pop, and you'll miss her. She was under the name Summer Matthews, if anyone wants to laugh. So yeah, you definitely Google it that. Yeah, it's on YouTube somewhere. And so they'd asked me to come in, like, you know, the way they push people further along the auditions and whatever. And they'd asked me to come into Birmingham, to audition. Now, it just happens that it wasn't that far from where the hospital was. And I was like, oh, I don't want to go. Like, didn't really care anyway. I wasn't like itching to be a singer, but it's just like a fun, I just thought it'd be like good banter.
Oh yeah,
see what happens.
Any opportunity,
yeah,
right?
It'd be funny. Like, let's just go for it, see what it's about. And Ross really, really, really like loved, like was very much a supporter of anything that I did. So he was like, no, you have to go. And I was like, oh, I don't really know if I want to. And he's like, no, you have to go, let's go. And he sort of liked the adventure and the idea of it. So we went to this meeting for like, basically Ross wanted to know how he was going to die, right? So in this meeting, we asked his parents to leave the room because we didn't want them to hear that. And then Ross got to ask the questions that he wanted, like, how am I going to die? Is it going to be painful? Like, how is this going to happen? The worst conversation, like literally conversations nobody wants to ever hear and no wife wants to hear. And so we had those questions. That was literally just before. Then we went to this fucking audition. I mean, what was I thinking? And I remember I went into this audition room and I went, okay, so I'm going to sing Demi Lovato Warrior. So I went, literally nothing came out. Like no words, nothing was coming out. And I'm like, and then I just burst into tears and I went, I'm so sorry. Like, I just found out like my husband's going to die. Like, I'm so sorry. Like, it was like, it's like the worst. And they were like, yeah, like it makes sense. Like you're like the gut and the vocal, like you're not going to be able to sing. So that was a weird experience. I don't know what we were thinking of me doing that. I'm like all like hyped and that because I'm like manic because I've just heard he's like how he's gonna die. So we did that. So so by then we knew that it was really bad, but nobody else knew that's where we were at. So at his brother's wedding, Ross was best man. It was like joyful. His brother's partner announced she was pregnant. Everybody was happy, and we were sat there with this news that the minute this is over, we're about to pull the rug from underneath everybody's joy and tell them that like it's shit, like it's bad.
It's horrible, isn't it, when you're carrying this news that's going to devastate so many people and you feel almost like you're responsible for it. You know, it's not your fault, but you know that you're going to have to drop that hammer and for him as well to be surrounded by family and friends at this wonderful occasion and to know that actually his time with you all is so limited.
Ross he really took a lot of responsibility about sort of what happens when he wasn't there. So like even then I remember him saying to me like, where do you want to live, what do you want, how do we set? And I was like not ready for that conversation. I'm like, I don't want this to be happening. He's like, yeah, but it is. So we have to talk about it. And he did things like, you know, he put his uncle as like I don't know, I've forgotten the name of it, but like he would have to also make decisions, because he was like, I don't want, if there's like a decision where it's like you have to turn off life support or something like that, he was like, I never want it to be like it's just on you and you have to have that burden on your own. He thought about that. He had like the second brain surgery because he was like, I don't want the girls to ever think I didn't give this a shot, like that I didn't do that. And there was always that the foresight in his mind. And even things like with the girls, like I said, you know, near the end, I was like, you know, do you want to write letters? Do you want to do videos? Is there anything that you want to leave or do like that? And he was like, no, because he's like, I trust you and I don't know who they're going to be. And if I'm saying stuff, you know, like I could be talking about them getting married and it's just not even something they want. They might be gay and I'm reflecting as if they're not. I might be saying things that they might then feel like they have to live by. I don't want there to be a fucking bench that they've got to go and sit by. I don't want that. I want, like, it's not me. I'm dead. I'm like, and he was, you know, neither of us believe in an afterlife. So the girls, I always said they could believe whatever they want, like whatever, nobody knows. Like I explained to them all the different versions. I'm like, nobody knows, you know, like we get to choose what we think. And I know that energy is infinite, and that for me is science, right? And so Ross's and your partners, like their energy lives on. It's just not in the form we wanted it to be in. And I think there was something really nice and all that. Ross, you know, he organised his funeral. Again, I hated it. I hate every second of him doing that. He made badges. He's like very good at design work, and he used to do printing and embroidery stuff. And he designed badges which would support, like, you know, like he just thought it'd be nice for everybody. It was like, it'd be nice, people will want like a memory thing. So he got those, like he had designed those. Like he really thought about, you know, the songs and stuff. And he was like, just want everyone to wear football shirts, like as long as they're not Sheffield United or Sunderland, they're not allowed to wear those, but they can wear anything else. And it was like, you know, his funeral, we had a non-religious, I forgot what they call that, but the non-religious ceremony. Humanist, that's right. And it was really, do you know what, it was really, really lovely. And people left and they were like, I know this is a weird thing to say, but I feel just really inspired, because it was, you know, I explained Ross's words and I explained what his message was. And at the funeral, we played the specials, Enjoy Yourself, It's Later Than You Think. And like people like sang, and like people felt that. And I think that in itself, it was like, there was something really empowering about that. And I remember the lady who did it, a lady called Throug, who was great. She said in it, you know, there's no more reason for Ross to have died than which leaf falls off the tree. There's no sense to it.
Yeah.
And I think for me that, you know, when you said about the passing down of like your knowledge of what you've learned as a widow, I think that was, and I'm sure you'll concur with this, that was my making sense of it. There is no sense for our partners to have died. It makes no fucking sense that this energetic big character that I had in my life is dead. That doesn't make any sense. Like the girl's dad, like he's dead, like it just doesn't make sense. So for me it was, you know, I remember being in the hospice. And there was a lot of press around Ross's death. So there was a lot of, again, the platform, I've had a platform since I was 11 years old. And yes, it's not Britney Spears, Jennifer Lopez, bloody, you know, all of that kind of level. But I've never not had eyes on what I do. And I guess that's psychologically a weird space to be in. But I've never not. And now everybody has these platforms online. But from the second I was, you know, from being 11 years old, I was on TV. And although I, you know, peaks and troughs of the things that I've done, there's always been people watching. And so when Ross died and there was that eyes on, and it was a different level. There was paparazzi at Ross's funeral. It was intense. Like I didn't know people were inside. It was in the paper. Like the second we left, everything that was in the order of service. Is that right? Order of service. Is that what you said? Yeah.
Yeah. Order of service. Yeah. I said that.
Yeah. Like that one.
We've now agreed that's right.
I think that is, yeah, I think so. Or is that weddings? I don't know, but it's probably the same.
I don't know.
It doesn't matter. But that was all like in the paper and stuff. And I think there was just so much, like, I guess for a while there was like, there was just so much noise. And so when we're in the hospice,
so much intrusion as well at the most vulnerable time in your life.
And there was good, I mean, there was pluses and there was minuses in that. In the plus part was I never have to tell anybody, which is horrible to do. So I didn't ever have to tell anybody, but everybody just knew. And then there was a lot of lack of understanding of my approach to it. Like I had to sit in the hospice and go, how do I do widowing? Like you know, like the word widow's miserable as fuck. You Google it and it just brings up like an old witch, and you're like, I was like, I'm 32, like I don't want that.
I'm not ready to hang out my life and wait it out.
Yeah, and when I was in the hospice, you know, I'm Googling the stages of death, I'm Googling what a widow is, I'm Googling all that stuff, and I'm like, I didn't see anybody speaking like me. I didn't see anybody as direct. I didn't see anybody as working class. I didn't see anybody that was talking about the really like nuanced parts of when somebody's dying. You know, I was looking at Ross at that time, knowing who he was, and knowing that at his second brain surgery, Ross said, I just don't want you feeding me fucking yogurt. I don't want to come out of this and be disabled to the point where I can't function. You're going to have to kill me, is what he was saying to me at the time. And I just kept thinking, like, he's lying there. And I had to readjust my understanding, because I knew I just wanted him to have a good death, whatever that looked like. And I just wanted him to feel like there was someone there. But that was difficult. You're watching somebody, you know, I'm watching Ross starve to death. That's what's happening at that point. And that's grim as fuck. And you know, his body's hanging on because he's 32. So the rest of his body's functioning very well, which means it's very prolonged. So there's this part of you that's going, I don't want this to be happening. I don't want you to be dying, but I don't want this anymore for you. And that's such a weird space to be in, where
real conflict.
Like you're like, once this is ended, this is it. But like, this is horrible. You need to let go.
Want it to be over for you.
And you and for him, like it was. And so I think
for him, I mean,
that's it. And I think it was all of that stuff. Like I couldn't find people talking about it. And what I found was everything's going to be shit forever. And you're never going to get over this. And I just rebuked it. I was like, I'm not doing that. And I'm going to talk about it. And I'm going to talk openly while I'm in the hospice. And I don't give a fuck whether people think it's insensitive or not the way to do it. And because of that honesty, and I guess because of my comfort in front of a camera, that I just would speak and it was not a big deal to me, I think people resonated with that. And there was people that were looking at that stuff and taking, you know, I still to this day get so many people that will message and say, you know, they found something on YouTube that I did and put out there, and they're like, it really helped me to understand that I wasn't alone in the feelings that I was having. And I will never not, when somebody messages me, you know, I might not be able to do it straight away, and I always have to protect my space, and I'm sure you do as well, you know, to make sure I'm in the right headspace to answer that or listen to that, because I have had stuff where I really have not been, and then it's really upset me. But I will always answer if I can, and I will be honest, because I know how isolating that can feel in those times when everyone around you is trying their very best, but they're not in your head and they don't understand it, and it's not their fault, but they're going to say stupid shit to you, and you're going to just think, oh, like, you know, people would say to me, you know, like, Ross will be watching over you, and I know that's meant with the best of intentions, but I'm like, that doesn't,
it's a bit creepy,
it's
right?
Fucking weird. I don't want it to be telling me off. I'll be doing the dishwasher wrong, or I'll be doing something else, you know. I don't want that. Like, for me, it's more comfortable that there's an end, and that the impact is who I am because of Ross. I am a different version of me because of Ross. I'm a better version. I'm a person who's also been through an incredible amount of pain because of that, but it also shifted me, the good and the bad. The girls are who they are because of Ross, and some of that is very clearly genetic, because they behave and say things like their dad that they didn't watch, which is crazy, right? Like the genetics.
It's mad,
like
right?
That's so interesting from a genetics perspective. So I'm like, you didn't watch that, but yeah, I'm watching it. Yeah. That's your dad. Like, that's crazy. Yeah. Like, and so, you know, the impact that we have on this planet, for me, isn't about, you know, waiting for a fucking afterlife, even if you believe in that, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not judging that, and whatever makes you feel comfortable, but live this one good. And for me now,
live this one first
and live it full. And, you know, when I think about my own life and I think about others, I think, and those that have gone through this and are going through it, I'm like, surely the way to honor the person's death is to live your life fully, because you've got the opportunity to. And they don't.
Yeah, I agree.
And that for me was,
I agree.
You know, that's the biggest thing. And I think if we can take anything from somebody's untimely death particularly, but you know that adds fuel to it. But at any point, if we can take something from it, it's life is short. It's shorter than we would like, and some people get less than their fair share of it. But, you know, I look at Ross and I know he made an impact in the 32 years. And that's that makes me feel more comfortable to know that. Like the only thing he didn't do, two things he didn't do, and that, but one of them was he wanted to go on a safari, right? He wanted to go on like an African safari. So it does play on my mind. I mean, the girls will do that. And the other one was that he wanted to jump out of a plane, right? And because he'd watched,
No,
I know exactly.
You're doing that.
So what happened, right? Oh my God. So, you know the Flo Rida video where he jumps out of in the music video, he jumps out. So Ross was like, I'm basically Flo Rida. I would like, and I'm like, you're definitely not an American black guy, but okay, fair play to you. And he's like, I want to jump out of a plane. So he always said that. And so it would have been his 40th birthday last year. So his brother was like, okay, I'm gonna jump out of a plane, right? I'll do that for Ross. We'll raise some money for Mike in Hospice where he died. I'm like, okay, cool. And I'm like, yeah, we'll come and watch. Like, absolutely not am I jumping. Like, it's a hard no. I'm really scared of heights. I'd already climbed down the Coventry Cathedral for Mike in Hospice, hated every second of it, got to the top. The guy's put a plank of wood over the edge, and he's like, and I'm like, ah! And I'm going to him, you dare kill me. My kids are at the bottom and their dad's dead. If you kill me, it's really fucking out of order. And he's laughing his head off. I'm scared of heights, right? So I kept trying to push myself to do things. But like, even now thinking about it, I'm like, my fingers are going funny. On the morning of this, like going to watch him, I knew we were going to go in this helicopter with his mum to, with my daughter Texas, to go and like go to the field where they were going to do it.
Very cool name, by the way, Texas.
Texas is a cool name. I know that. Although it's a little crazy out in America now, which is spoiling her name a little bit. You know, Texas, calm down. Like, you know, just can you? And so we've gone out, and I worried about this beforehand, that if they asked me that ADHD impulsivity would kick in, because I know how scared I am, but the ADHD wants to do things for the plot always. And like, I'm like, it's like a secret identity here of a separate part of me. But there's part that just wants like lack of impulse control. So we get there, and this guy's gone like, look, obviously I've organised this for you. And he said, we don't do walk-ins, but if anyone wants to jump, they can. And my mother-in-law's looked at me, go on, do it. And I'm like, no, I don't want to. And then because it's in my head, I'm like, jump out. My ADHD is like, jump out the fucking plane.
Yeah. Do it.
And I'm like, I don't want to. And then I hear myself saying, all right, I'll jump out the plane. And at every point I'm going, I don't want to do it. And I'm swearing a lot. And everyone, all these big burly blokes, and they're all like, it's very bad language. She's really bad. I'm like, fuck off. I'm scared of heights. Scared of heights. And what's even funnier is, as I'm signing the thing, it says on the thing, which is something for someone to look into, it says, you can't have ADHD. And I'm like, who do you think is up there? Who do you think is jumping out?
Because it's not the neurotypicals. They're not doing that.
Are you joking me? So then we get me also, and I'm like, at every point, I'm just like, what am I doing? What's really weird is, as we were going up, there's a few people doing it. We got talking to one of the guys who's like the person who you're strapped to. And we explained why we were doing it, and that Ross liked the Flo Rida video, and that's why we were jumping out of a plane. And the guy said, this is an English guy in the middle of England. And he went, yeah, I worked on the video. He said, I was the one that jumped with him. I know.
Stop.
How weird is that?
What are the chances?
So weird synchronicity. And I know that spiritual people will be like, that's Ross.
Who's this?
That's Ross. So like, it was really weird though. And then so we did the job. And like, I mean, I get travel sick really easily. So I did not enjoy, I was so fucking travel sick. It's like spinning me around, and I'm like, he's like, do you want to do more? It's like, you're fine. I'm like, I'm going to throw up. So let's not do that anymore, because I don't want to land with vomit cover. I mean, that's not a thing, is it? I mean, it's a funny story if I did, but I was like nearly ready to throw up. So I got down and then like was like, okay, that's done. That's out of my system. And people say, don't they? They said the same way.
Enjoy it.
No,
okay.
Like people say, oh, you're going to love it, you're going to get I did not enjoy it. I felt sick, and I was travel sick for the rest of the day. It literally was just a fun story. Yeah, it's a fun story. But you know what? I mean, yeah, that's it. I don't want to climb down the cathedral again. I'm still scared of heights. I just don't think we're supposed to jump out of things and climb down high buildings. I just think it's fine. I'm on the ground.
I'm with you.
I've done my bit.
Yeah,
it's done. Like, even thinking about it, even seeing a video of it, I'm like, why did I do that? That's horrible.
I'll tell you what gets me is bungee jumping. What would possess anyone? Ben did a bungee jump and showed me a video once, and it was back in the 90s.
Even
and
worse.
He'd done it, and it didn't look safe, I'll be honest. Like, and he was going, watch it. I'm like, I cannot watch you be dangled by your feet over some
again and
cavern.
again. Oh my God, no.
That can't be good for you, can it? That's got to do something to your joints.
And my dad's always worked in health and safety, and he was a welder. So anytime you get to the top of like a ride or something when we were a kid, he'd be like, wonder who did the joists on them thing, on those welds on those joists or whatever.
Thanks, Dad.
He'd be like, can you not? So I didn't tell him. I rang him afterwards. I just jumped out of a plane. He was like, you did not. Why would you do that? I was like, I don't know. I just wish I hadn't. But yeah, so we did that for, you know, I guess in memory of the one or two things that Ross hadn't done. Other than that, he was like, I've lived my life how I wanted. I've said what I wanted to say, and I regret nothing. And I just think, well, if I can teach my girls anything, it's that. You're going to offend some people.
Live life to the fullest.
You're going to offend some people, and some people are going to like you, and some people are going to hate you, and you've got zero control over any of it. So you may as well just do things for yourself. Be a kind human being. That doesn't mean being selfish, but people that are listening to this, they're not selfish people. They're not. They're good people who are, you know, introspective and think about things. Like, just, you have to make decisions for your life. Otherwise, you'll sit waiting, and then you'll regret that you just didn't give it a fucking go. You know, do it for the story, do it for the plot, and have good stories to tell when you're hopefully very old. And, you know,
maybe no bungee jumping.
Don't bungee jump. Oh.
No bungee jumping. No. So if you're comfortable doing so, because I'm aware of the age of your children, that, you know, teenagers don't necessarily like their mums talking about them on podcasts. I have experience of that myself. So just how did you cope with having very young children, and how do you cope now with having kind of teenage girls on your own?
Yeah, so my girls were 4 and 6 when Ross died, and my oldest, who's also autistic and very direct, was that at that age as well, and she was very aware. And I remember being in the hospice, and she said to me, is Dad going to come out of the hospice? And I was always, and I always will be, very honest with the girls about everything. They can ask any questions they want. There's nothing that they can't ask me in terms of anything, and I'll do my best to answer in a way that I think is appropriate as best I can. And I'd spoken to Jeff Brazier, who was the ex-partner of Jade Goody, earlier on. He was very, very kind, and very generous in his time.
I'd like to get him on the podcast, actually.
Yeah, he'd be a really good one to speak to. And he obviously wrote a book about grief as well. And he was very kind. We didn't massively know each other, but I think we'd been on a TV show once back in the day, and then it was Twitter when it was, you know, not crazy. And he'd contact me, and just like, we'd had a conversation. One before Ross died, we'd spoken about telling the girls when I hadn't yet done that, and I felt I needed to, and everyone around me was going, no, don't do it. And I was like, I feel like I need to, like, then now is the time. And he reassured me that it was, and was very kind and generous, and so I got a bit of advice of him and how he'd spoken to his boys. And so I promised that I would always be direct and honest with the girls. And in the hospice, Brooke had said to me, is Dad going to come out of the hospice, Mum? And I said, no, darling, he's not. And she said, I really want you to come home, Mum, but I know that if you come home, it means Dad's dead. And I was like, yeah.
Oh, poor little thing.
Yeah. And so when I did come home, and again, I had spoke to Jeff Brazier, and he had said, you know, make the telling of it something positive, like get balloons or sweets or something that it makes it for kids like less painful, like there's just something good attached. And so I came in, and my sister was looking after my kids, and she was like bloody fully pregnant as well, bless her, and she was there. And the girls ran up to me, because I mean, we were in the hospice for a month, and for the last few weeks I was not at home, and the girls had stopped coming in. I'd stopped it because it wasn't particularly very nice at that point, and I didn't want them to really see him like that. When
you don't want that to be their last memory.
It was getting to the point where he was sort of still awake for a few days, and it was really not him, and I just didn't want them to see that. And so then I told them, and they were really, I initially, they were just excited to see me. And then there was that realization and what that meant. And then obviously I told them, and we cried. And then we did some drawing. I said, do you want to do some drawing? Because my family are really creative, and we did some drawings and stuff. And I remember that Brooke, who was that little bit older, she drew a picture of everybody, but she drew Ross just like a little bit away. And I think that was just her way of processing. And she was very direct as a kid. So it was difficult for everybody. Like when I told them that he was going to die, I did a video and I sent it to everybody that was in contact with the girls, just me in my car. And I was like, right, this is what I've told them. This is what they're going to approach. Brooke is going to say to you when she sees you, do you know my dad's going to die? And you're going to have to deal with that as an adult. Suck it up, because it's not theirs to deal with.
I love this.
And I really do advise everybody to do this. What are your values? What are your wishes? Tell them beforehand, because your kids are out of sometimes with other people during this period. And I said, do not tell those girls about your version of an afterlife. It's not your fucking business to do that. That is not for you. I have said to them, they can believe in a heaven, they can believe in many lives, they can believe he turns into a butterfly, they can believe whatever they want. It is not our business to tell them that. And in fact, at one point before Ross died, when my grandma died, I asked Brooke, who's my oldest, what she thought happened, and she said, I just think that the love that was in them gets shared out with everybody that's left. And I was like, oh my God, I know.
It's given me all the goosebumps.
I was like, that one, like that.
What a sweet little soul.
Like, that one, that I believe in that as well. Whatever that is, whatever I do.
I believe in that now.
That is like
I believe in that one.
Beautiful thing, like. And so I in this video, I just said all of those things. Is this what I've told them? This is what they know. This is what you can know. And this is kind of how I started vlogging, to be honest, in terms of Ross, because I just was so difficult. It was difficult to do updates and I didn't want to keep saying it. So I just did videos and I sent it out to everybody. And then I just put them on my YouTube because people were following me already. And I don't want to have these conversations.
Yeah, it's the easiest way to disseminate information without you having to contact everybody.
And it meant that I could then send that to teachers. This is what the girls know. It gives them a bit of, backing, because I think that's really scary for everyone around. How do I not make this worse? So they'd been told that, but Brooke was very direct. So like I remember our neighbour, and we were really close to our neighbours, we were really good neighbours, and especially when Ross was ill, he'd have a seizure sometimes and the ambulance would turn up and I'd just take the kids to them and they would just take them in the middle of the night. I'd be in my bloody pants and bra and shove and go, and he's having a seizure, like just grab him. And
paparazzi's outside.
We had lovely, our lovely Muslim neighbours who were very, very gorgeous people who just were just so warm and giving, and they would take the girls in, and very culturally they're always like you can't leave without sweets and something. They're just so gorgeous. And I remember the dad had come round, and he was actually their son was having a big wedding and we had been invited, and I think seeing me come back, they wanted to know how Ross was, and they probably hadn't seen a lot of the updates and stuff. And Brooke answered the door before me and she just said, Dad, my dad's dead. And he burst into tears, and because it was a shock. And Brooke still remembers that because she felt bad about it. And I was like, no, darling, it's not yours to carry. That was just, it's just sad. It is just sad. And so she was very direct. And so for the girls, I try to from the beginning, and you'll know yourself, we don't get it right all the time. We're doing it real time. But I try to be honest. I try to give them ways to process stuff. We had get it out books where I was like, you can write anything you want. You can write swear words. You can write back. I'll read it if you want, but I won't look at it if you don't want me to. Obviously, Texas was a little bit younger. I said, you can do videos on my phone if you want to say something, or you want to do a voice note. We had a box in the room where you could write questions and put them in if you didn't want to talk to me. Before we used to go to bed, when obviously it was more difficult, we used to do, we did all sorts. I started to let them swear because I was trying to find ways to let it out. So I would say to them, you can just say whatever you want, but you have to say it in the bedroom or in the car. We used to have sweary songs in the car, like Lily Allen's Fuck You. And just to get it out. I was like, music, get it out.
It's just a word, isn't it? It's just a word.
And I remember the first time I said it to them, because they were like, I don't want to. I was like, I won't even look if you want to not say it. And they were like, bloody hell. Now it's got feral, so I have to reel it back in now. But at the time it was a way, because it feels weighty. It feels enough. Soft words don't land. They're feeling this deep pain. We're feeling this pain. It doesn't land to say, once a teacher said to Texas when she said her dad died, and she said, oh, that's not very nice. And I'm like, she came over to me, I'm not very nice.
Not very nice.
Not very nice is dropping your ice cream on the floor. Your dad dead's fucking shit. You need that language, that you need it. And so we would then do, I used to do sweary poems. So I'm quite quick at a rhyme, so it would give me 2 swear words and what had happened in their day, and then I would have to go away for 10 minutes and just write 2 poems, and then I would read the poem that they'd come up with.
Amazing. What a skill.
Just it was, we were doing it on our feet, right? We were just trying as we go, and I was trying everything, and Brooke dealt with it more with there was a lot of anger for Brooke, and Texas was young, so there was a lot of not really understanding and a lot of repetition for Tex. And I've had to explain death in ways I didn't even understand myself time and time again. And giving them space to speak. There was things that they would say when they were younger, like, did I give him cancer? Did I stood on his foot once and he jumped up because I hurt? There's things that you don't know they're holding inside, and we have to give them space. And I would even I realized that when I wasn't crying, as we adults, we stop crying, I think, all the time. And for them, they just saw all these adults not bothered anymore. Yeah. And I realised I was sometimes crying on my own, or I wasn't mentioning my pain.
Because you don't want to upset them, but actually they need to see that this terrible thing is being acknowledged.
Yeah. And I think, so I always, even now, I will say, I had something happened today and it just got me a bit and it just upset me because of that. Yeah. And I still say that to them now because they need to know it's okay. And sometimes, they're, the girls now, they're 15 and 13 and I guess it's different at this stage, but yourself that it's the differences as they get older. It's the loss of the person being there. It's the loss of the person being there at these pivotal moments in their life. And they don't necessarily acknowledge that as such, but we don't really always need to. We've got Father's Day coming up. It was just Ross's birthday a couple of weeks back. It's always this time of year. It's also a weird time of year because round May time, and they say your body keeps the score, I always feel a level of unrest. Ross died July 29th, and the sort of timeline of that was we went to Turks and Caicos on a holiday, which a weird one. I cancelled a speaking event before it. I never do that. And I also cancelled something for my daughter, and I never cancel stuff. It's just not a thing I do. But I felt like this holiday was important, and thank God we went, because we went on this holiday. When he was on the plane, he had a seizure, and when he got back, he had a seizure. And I remember because we were writing 32 reasons why we love Dad. We were writing some things down on the other table, and I looked around and he started to have a seizure. And that for was very poignant, and it was from there we went downhill. He went to hospital, and that was when we started to see, obviously, this tumours had been growing, and we didn't know that at the time. So there was this timeline from around his birthday to him dying. So around this time of year, around May, around his birthday, and then going into June is basically when things started to happen and when we found out stuff and that he was dying. And so there's this feeling around this time. There's something that I feel it in my body, and I don't even know it, but I don't even acknowledge it until I'll get a stomach cramps, or there'll be something that happens, and I'm like, why am I feeling like? And I'm like, oh, okay, it's that my body knows, and there's probably some somatic release stuff that I can do around that, but it definitely is still there. And so even without the girls knowing it, sometimes I notice certain things around this time of year that are underlying that they probably can't acknowledge either, but it definitely, there's something there. And we make dead dad jokes a lot.
Oh, same.
We love a dead dad joke.
Dark humour.
Dark humour helps us through, and you don't get it until you're in that club, and it's a shitty club to be in, but at least humour is there, and there's so much. And Ross was so direct that he loved dark humour, he loved inappropriate humour, so it's very in keeping, and it feels very right.
It's interesting you say that, because Ben's birthday was on Friday.
Oh, wow.
And I wasn't going to make a thing of it because my eldest is 16, he's doing his GCSEs, and I really didn't want to kind of derail him, and so I just thought, I'll just kind of keep that quiet. And last week I felt awful. I was convinced I was coming down with something. I'm putting my symptoms into Google, ChatGPT now. That's my new doctor. And I was thinking, why do I feel so rubbish? I'm looking after myself. I'm doing all the good things. And then I thought, it's that body keeping score, and it's that passage of time. And we tend not to think about birthdays as being really big, significant dates when we compare them to the date of diagnosis or death. But actually, they are the passage of time.
Yeah, I find birthdays, harder because he didn't get it. He didn't get this birthday. I find it harder. The day that he died, it's just a shit day. There's nothing, we, in the past, we always did dad days. So we do for his birthday, we always did something and we tend to do it less now. But it's always offered to the girls. If you want to do something, I usually do something. I'll get a birthday cake or something and just say, we're doing this, or we'll maybe go out for some food or something, and we'll go, well, this is for Dad. But when they were younger, we did all kinds of different things. We'd go out for afternoon tea, we would go away to an Airbnb, we would do something that acknowledged it, because I think one of the things when I was in the hospice and I was talking to people whose parents had died when they were young and stuff, and I was saying, how can I not fuck them up? Like, what do I do?
Can I not fuck them up? Yeah.
That's all. What do I do? How do I do this? And a lot of the things that people were saying were nobody spoke about them. They didn't say their name. Yes. So I will always, and I'm sure you do as well, I will say, like, what's your person's name? Like, because people stop saying their name, and we want to talk about them because they mattered and they continue to matter. Like Ross is, I'm not, we're 9 years or whatever it is down the line now, and I don't wake up every day and go, oh my God, like Ross isn't here. It's not like that. But it is
not like in the early days where you wake up and you wait and you have a few seconds of respite and then the hammer drops on you. It's just part of who you are now, isn't it?
But it's the things that catch you off guard that you're doing, or it's finding their handwriting on something which feels really like tangible, or it's recognizing, like I recognized for a while, like I didn't get rid of the bin and it was absolutely wrecked, right? And they're like, Ross obviously was autistic, so he would research certain things like within an inch of his life, and one of them was the bin, right? It's a fantastic bin. It's very expensive. There was all kinds of reasons he tried to bore me with that I didn't want to know about. Why this? And I realized like I needed to get a new bin. It just looked a bit like it just needed fit. Like, and I wasn't getting it. And I was like, why don't you just do it? Like, and I realized it was grief related. Like, I wasn't getting rid of the bin because getting rid of the bin was getting rid of something that was in this house that was related to Ross, and it was his thing, and it felt like a betrayal that I was getting rid of the bin. And it was even like, because Ross was the chef in my house, he was a cook, like he was great. I mean, poor kids, but like I do not enjoy it.
Right, air fryers exist for a reason, Holly.
Thank God for an air fryer, which I resisted because I just didn't want everyone telling me what to do.
You want to follow the trend?
I hate it. It's demand avoidance, and someone bought me it, and I'm annoyed that I didn't get one. Especially with an autistic child that needs beige food on tap now, and it's quick, and it's if she won't eat it, okay, we go for another beige food. We're in again.
My kid can. I've got two autistic kids as well, and the middle one he can cook his own food.
We're not there yet.
So if I cook a dinner for everybody else, he'll. I mean, I'm talking about putting breaded chicken in an air fryer. I'm not talking about cordon bleu meals, but it's progress.
It's definitely progress. And so there was so much. And there was like another thing. There was a colander. It was all like. It was all like falling apart, literally cut me about 3 times. It was falling apart and I wasn't getting rid of it. And I was just like, why am I not getting? I'm like, it's because it's another thing. Like, it's a thing I don't want to get rid of. So
become weirdly attached to a colander.
Do you know what I mean? Like, that's definitely a title of a podcast or a book, but it's like the colander I couldn't let go of.
Weirdly attached to my colander.
Exactly that.
Let's trademark that before someone nicks it.
And I just, it was, there's things like that now, I think, but Ross is he's part of every day because I am who I am because of loving Ross and because of losing Ross. There's nothing in between. Like people talk about and I'm not in a relationship, and there's no fear around that. It's just fucking hell, I'm always doing stuff and my life is very full and I love it, and there's no space. And there's nothing wrong with, I'm not like sad about that. Like, that will happen as it does. I don't force things in my life. But there are a lot of people that will sort of feel that sort of feeling of betrayal because they didn't break up with their person. So it's a weird space. But I've always said to people when I speak to them about that, and I've always put it for myself, is like, the person that's meeting me now is not meeting the person that Ross knew. They're not. They're meeting a different version of me completely. Like, Ross comes with me in every decision because I am braver and stronger, and all of the things that I do comes with Ross being part of that by default. So that's not a betrayal. It's not a walking away from. It's you're coming with me in this story. And anybody, in terms of relationships that you're with after that point, like, they will have to get that. Like, and if they don't, then they're not your person.
They're not your person.
Like, and that's fine. And I think, for those that are early stages in grief, that early stage is so challenging. And I think the very early stages for me was like, it didn't really hit me until the 2nd year because it calmed down, and then it was like, so he's just not here. Like, he's actually dead.
Yeah. And nobody else cares because you're all getting on with your lives. And I'm here in the rubble.
In the rubble with 2 grieving kids. Like, and it's an absolute shit show. Like, And, you know, I think that's challenging. And I also think there was a grieving around COVID as well. I think because it was a collective grief happening, for me during that time, like, I think I relived a lot of that grief and actually let a lot of it out. And I actually said to the girls, because I think you protect your space, and so you should, you protect parts of that grieving process. And if you've had somebody that has been in a hospice or been in long-term ill health beforehand, there's parts of that that are very traumatic. And I know there's parts of that I still haven't addressed with therapy or anything like that. And that's okay. Like, I don't think you have to do this all at once. I think it's in stages. And I joke with the girls that I got into watching Grey's Anatomy when I was during COVID, like absolutely just smashed all of the millions of series out. And I say, like, there's part of like that helped me grieve. Like, there's actually part of watching other people's pain and sobbing over it that helped me let go of some of that pain.
Like a safe outlet.
Yeah, it was like it was almost like I could allow myself to do it through other people's pain. But by doing that, it did allow me to sort of address some of that stuff that was still there. And I think, you know, when people had talked to me about grief prior to experience that big grief, I really didn't understand it. How could you? And I'm glad I didn't, right? But I think it was what I didn't understand. You know, somebody might say, oh, my person died 10 years ago. And I just think, oh, it's 10 years have passed. Like, you must be over it.
Yeah. You'll be fine now and then, yeah. But it's like when you read the 5 stages of grief, and I remember thinking, okay, so this is all I've got to do. I've just got to get through these, to acceptance, tick, tick. And that very ADHD, I'll get that done in a week. Don't you worry about me.
That's so true. I mean, I remember looking at that as well. And oh my God, I mean, the stages are a guide. I guess they're just points of things that can happen. And I remember one of them, bartering, that one. Yep. But I remember like that happening, right? And I didn't really understand that one. And it happened it was such a weird, like, bearing in mind, I've said to you, I'm like an atheist and I'm very science-based and I am very black and white a lot of the time. Although I would say I'm probably what people would class as quite spiritual and intuitive. I'm very that. I'm very in touch with like feelings. I guess that's that neurodivergent spidey sense. And so I'm all of that, but I'm sat there and everything changed very quickly for us after Ross's death. So we moved house. We were building this house at the time. We were building a big extension and we bought this and we were doing it up. And so we had moved house. We had a disability car at the time for Ross. So the car went.
They took
the car straight away. Yeah. They took the house. We moved house. So we moved house. Literally everything changed. And the girls moved schools. So the poor teachers, they've obviously seen it in the papers. It was everywhere. Everybody's looking at me when I've walked into the school playground, just like everyone's staring at me. It's raining. Texas is she dead husband. Oh my God. Everyone's cocking their head at me. I'm like, here's some grieving kids. Bye bye. Everything was like really, really quickly like change. And I remember before I was packing up the house to move and stuff, and I'm balling up Ross's socks. Part of me is thinking, great, I can steal his socks, because I was always getting in trouble for stealing these socks. I'm like, I'll take it.
I didn't used to own any socks. I used to just nick Ben's.
Better. They're just bigger, comfier, like brilliant. It doesn't matter that they're like really long and too big for me. It doesn't matter. No, I'll have them.
Up to the knees.
Perfect. And so I'm balling these up. And then there was part of me that went, we must be able to bring him back. We must be able to bring him back.
Must be a way.
There must be a way. We've got enough money between us. How can we? He's literally fucking cremated, by the way. And I'm sat there, and that was an actual logical thought in my head. I was like, no, but there must be a way they can bring him back. That can't be real. And then obviously there was a clarity of what I was saying to myself in my head, and I'm like, what the fuck? This is one of those stages. But it was a real, for like a few minutes, I was thinking, well, there must be somebody somewhere.
How can I make this happen? Who can I talk to? I want to talk to a manager, somebody more senior.
Somebody must be able to. I mean, come on, whatever is going on. And there's more. I mean, Ross would love this stuff. Like there was another time as well, because none of us are really religious. I mean, some people in the sort of wider family might.
I'm not either. I wish I was at sometimes, you know. I wish I believed that. I wish I believed he was there. And I've tried very hard to tap into signs, and I went to see a medium very quickly, and then I went to see one not that long ago.
Anything?
Nothing. I mean, no, nothing. I mean, the first one, nothing. The second one, I gave her my actual name, because I thought, you know what, let's try this way. And she was convincing, I'll give you that. There was a few bits, but it wasn't him. Like, there's no way he was there in that room because he didn't mention the kids. He didn't tell me he loved me. He said it was all very superficial. I've yet to be convinced.
Yeah.
You know, I'm one of these kind of, I'm a skeptic.
Yeah. They always tell me I'm angry, and I'm like, I'm not. I'm just not giving you anything. And I'm very much like, I absolutely believe people are psychic. I don't think it's, personally, I don't know, we don't know, right? But I do believe that people, because intuitiveness, I have things,
and we're all so connected, aren't we? I believe in that. I believe we're all connected.
And maybe the part of me that can kind of get on board with it is that I believe that energy is infinite. So maybe there's some realm of science that we don't understand where the energy of our partners is able to be transmitted by somebody who is more open. I'll accept that. Maybe there is.
Yeah, I'll buy that.
Maybe there is, and I'm not closed off to it. But I'm similar to you. Like, we went to one because his mum wanted me to go to one, right? One of these like ones where they're at like a spiritual church. And I mean, already I'm dying because I'm like, Ross would be absolutely, he would be mocking you, so he would be hammering you. But I went because obviously it's his mum, and I can't imagine that pain. I can't even let it in my head because it's too much. I can't imagine it.
No, and we keep that squashed down, don't we? Much like people would look at us and think, oh God, I can't begin to imagine what they're going through. I have to shut down the idea of that because then I start thinking about my kids dying, and then I spiral.
100%. Like, I can't imagine her pain, and she's the most beautiful person. Like, she's a lovely person. So I went along with her and a couple of our friends, and I'm watching these people and I'm going, I promise you now, Rosie, I could have stood up on that stage and I could have given a reading, because I'm intuitive. Like, I'm intuitive. Like, I can pick up things that people, I do pick up things that are weird, and I don't always like that I do it because it freaks me out. Like, I saw a girl that came to one of my events once on my feed on Instagram, and I was like, she's got cancer. And then I was like, why do I think that? That's weird. Do I know she's got cancer? She then messaged me saying, I'm having some tests for bowel cancer. I wondered if you could send me some meditations. And she had grade 4 bowel cancer. Stuff like that happens all the time, and I don't know why. I assume it's pattern recognition from neurodivergence. I assume I'm very intuitive. So I get that people can do that, and I don't know why, and it does freak me out. And everyone that's spiritual messaging me and like, you have this gift, and I'm like, maybe I need to explore that at some point.
I don't want it.
It freaks me out. I don't know how I feel about it. But anyway, so I get people can do that, and I know I could have just stood there. And I'm not saying it's like a magic thing. It's just reading people, like Darren Brown does it. And so I'm sat there, and so I'm a skeptic, right? And I'm watching these people, and some of them are grifters, some of them are giving people comfort, right? And so let them be. I'm watching, and these didn't seem like they were great. They just seemed like they believed it, and they were giving people comfort. But there's this one, and I'm again, that look I mentioned at the beginning, where I wanted to look at Ross and be like, like, I can't. So this woman started going to this woman on the same aisle as me. She's going, have you, and I can't do this accent, but it's a really broad Dudley accent, right? So it's kind of humorous. It is a humorous accent.
Call yourself an actress.
I know Dudley I can't do. I think I could work. I'll work on it for next time, guys. But
Would you mind?
Sort of Dudley, really thick black country accent, right? And so that does make it comical, right? I'm sorry, the Geordie accents had our day of being mocked, right? The black country is a funny accent. So she's speaking really thick, and she's going to this woman, like, are you have problems with, maybe like, is it maybe diabetes, you know, and she's going, I'm really feeling your joints, your knee joints and your ankle joints. A lot of pain there, a lot of pain. And I'm itching to look, right? I'm itching, but I can't because it's like intrusive. So I'm waiting until she's moved on. I've looked. This woman, and this is not shade on this woman, but this woman was morbidly obese. And I'm like, are you fucking, I could have fucking told you her joints were hurting. Like, I'm not being a bitch, but Jesus Christ, we can see her joints are going to be hurting. The poor woman's absolutely massive. Of course they're going to be. This wasn't a little bit. This wasn't like, I'm a little bit overweight. Like, this was like absolutely massive. I'm like, that's just, you're taking the piss out of me. And I'm like, you're taking the piss. There's nothing specific about that. There's just nothing specific about it. And so I don't, if this woman took comfort from that woman, diagnosing her ankle joints, fair play. I'm not trying to poo-poo that, right? And I do believe there are people are very, and I've had a few things where I thought, okay, like one woman did say to me, all I'm getting is frog, right? Now, that is specific because Ross used to tell me I look like a frog, right? And when he said, you big old eye, big goggle eyes, son.
It's just romance
Do you know what I
instead,
mean?
eh?
I mean, he told me I look like Robbie Williams as well. So, like, thanks, Ross. Cheers, mate. I mean, he's a good-looking man. I'll take it. If I was a man, I'd take it. But
right.
when he was coming out of when he was in intensive care, his first surgery, I rang up when I was in the, like, I went home for a little bit, and I rang up and said, is he all right? And she said, I don't know, but he's saying to tell you that you look like a frog. And I was like, I'm fine. He's fine. I'll come in and say it, and he's fine. And she was like, okay, I didn't know whether that was offensive or it's just like if it's to do with the brain.
Or if he was having some sort of moment.
Yeah. I was like, no, that actually is just Ross. That was the problem, you know.
And quite reassuring.
I mean, because Ross was so, like, quirky and direct in his approach to how he would say things, when Ross was, like, at the end of life, like, some of the things he was saying, like, people weren't sure if it was just Ross being Ross. Like, at one point, and again, this is grim humor, so, you know, it's only for this podcast really, because other people won't get it, but, like,
this is your
it's
safe
a safe space to say the weird shit. And so obviously, because it's brain, he'd lost the use of, like, being able to go to the toilet, and they'd put him in nappies, right? So we're at the hospital, and he's got these nappies on, but he's got nothing else on his top half. His mates have come round, right? And again, they know what Ross is like. Like, Ross would do stuff like this, probably. So he's stood up, right? And he's quite a skinny guy, right? And, like, muscly but skinny. And he's just got these little, basically a nappy on. And he's went, "You having this, lads? They're only dressing me like fucking Mowgli in here." Like that. And they're just like, oh my God. They're not sure how to act. Like, is this all right? And I'm like, Ross, you get back into bed, pal. It's like, when you dressed me like, fucking Mowgli.
Put your nappy away.
I was laughing. And I remember in the hospice, the early, like, few days when there was still parts of Ross, like, coming out now and then. Like, there was little parts of, like, almost like, it'd be like a pocket if we would see a bit of him for a minute or two. Like, he would speak like himself. And then it would, like, be more garbage, like, random stuff. And the nurse was, like, changing him and stuff, again having to change a nappy essentially and the bedding and stuff. And she came out and she
how degrading for
well, this
him.
is, I mean, going into the hospice was positive because I was doing that stuff. Now, Ross would not have cared. Like, he genuinely didn't care. He'd probably like the uncomfortableness of it, but, like, it didn't feel nice to me. Like, it felt like this is not what it shouldn't be what a wife is doing.
You go from being wife to carer.
Yeah, and that was awful. And I'm 5'1". I'm, like, a tiny person. Like, I'm not like, he's, you know, 6 foot man. It was getting dangerous, like, where I couldn't hold him and lift him and stuff. So, but I remember this nurse came out, and she was really quite a mild character, and she went, "Oh my gosh, I think I've offended him." And I went, "How? How could you possibly? He's never been offended in his life. What did you possibly say?" And she went, "Oh, well, I was changing him, and he said, 'Why are you dressing me like a fucking baby?'" Like that. And she was like, and I went, "Oh no, like, he would have just said that like that. He's just trying to make you feel
make you
uncomfortable." I mean, he said, like, this is his level of humor, right? We once went to the doctors where he had to have the doctor put their finger in his arse, right? And I'm in the room with him, curtain gets drawn, he says, knowing it's uncomfortable, knowing just is going to make everyone in the room, she's closed the curtain, and he's went, "It's not cheating." No, stop, what are you doing? And she's obviously uncomfortable. I'm like, I look like a mental bunny boiler, like, I'm like crazy, like, "It's not cheating." I'm like, "No, why would you do that? Why are you making everything?" But he loved that kind. That's his favourite humour. So I'm like, that kind of would have been what he would have said. So I was like, "You haven't offended him. Like, I promise you. I'm not sure."
He sounds very much like Ben.
Really?
You know, once we were going into Superdrug in St Albans, where my parents are, and for some unknown reason, he put his head on my head and said, "We're going to be conjoined twins." And I was like, "Get off. I'm not walking." And he just wouldn't do it. He just insisted on having his head on my head as we walked around the shop.
Was he autistic?
And I was thinking, in hindsight,
with the kids,
I mean, and also I am,
Yeah.
when I was looking at his collection of military history books, you know, and I was thinking,
yeah,
in hindsight,
possibly there were signs that we would. But the thing is, you know, we flock together, don't we? So we do.
We do, birds of a feather, we
run
do.
in packs, so I do think that sometimes we don't notice it, and also, like, you know, in terms of diagnosis with the kids and stuff like that, like my youngest daughter hasn't got a diagnosis, but we say she's neurotypical-ish, like, she's ADHD in my opinion.
Ish. My eldest we call ish as well, yeah.
We're like, it's literally more genetically heritable than your eye colour and hair colour, so I
Yeah.
think it's probably safe to say with two parents that are like,
Yeah.
but it actually masked a lot of, and I'm sure, I think you've spoken to a few people about this as well, like it masked with Brooke, my oldest. She was in therapy for grief. And it masked a lot of that stuff because we were like, is this just the perfect shitstorm of everything?
Oh,
And
absolutely.
that's why we took a while to really explore that, because I was like, I don't want to get her the wrong diagnosis. I want the right diagnosis for her.
And they take it very seriously as well, don't they? Because Hector was only 5 when he was diagnosed. And I remember they were said, this is going to take a little bit longer because we need to be very certain that this is not a grief response and that it's a trauma response. And then, of course, because he'd been diagnosed with my daughter when she was about 4, I was like, oh, fucking hell, here we go again. But I knew what I was looking for this time. Whereas with my eldest, I say to him quite often, you know, do you want to be assessed? You know, the chances are there perhaps is something. But for him, it's never impacted his life. He doesn't feel he needs
Probably
it.
because he's watching you guys
think,
as well. And I think that's what I said to Texas. I'm like, to me, like it was mentioned in school that, you know, she was getting up and she was tapping and she just does loads of sport. And like at this stage, there are a few things. Secondary school is definitely kind of where things shift in terms of learning styles.
And puberty as well, I think.
There's definitely an intensity, and we're kind of at a little bit of a stage there. But she knows about it. She understands it. She knows that I think you probably are. I mean, I'm not going to...
And you probably parent accordingly. That's the thing. My house is a neurodivergent house. So we very rarely sit at lots of things I thought I would do as a family. We very rarely sit at the table. No, because none of us enjoy it. We all eat a different meal. We actually want to go and sit and watch the telly. 100%. And that's not to say we can't go out for a meal, but they are capable of doing it. But I just think just because something is kind of advertised to you as the way to live your life, you don't have to do it. Did you also find that?
Because this also came up for us in that for a while Brooke would really kick off. This before we knew her diagnosis, and we thought it was grief, and you know she had Tourette's and tics and didn't sleep and all these things. Now we understand we're all the same profile, but we were dealing with everything. So, and one of the things once she said to me, and I understood it more, was if we sit at the table, there's someone missing. It doesn't look how it's supposed to. And I hadn't understood that was a trigger. So we don't sit at the table. And I know there's a lot of judgment around that outside of understanding it, not in these spaces, but we're the same. Everybody eats different food. Nobody, or unless we're watching something together. And even that I'm sitting with one of them at a time because they don't want to sit together because they're irritating each other. So you know, we could have a whole different podcast on neurodivergent children, parenting them.
I feel like we need another one.
I mean, I feel like there's quite a niched down, and I do say it a lot because I don't know what the reason is, but like widowed neurodivergent kids on top of that as well. Like there's another sort of niche set there because it is like you're trying to pick what is grief, what is neurodivergence, and also how you grieve is, I think the ways you grieve are different, the ways it shows up.
Absolutely.
As an ADHD person, I explored the fact out of sight, out of mind.
Oh my God, I was just going to say that. Yeah. And I found that really weird, the way I could almost, and sometimes I can compartmentalize it. Yeah.
But then it hits you harder, I think, when you do remember, and then it hits you as a surprise almost, because it's like they weren't there, so they're not in your memory. But then when something reminds you of them, then it's like, oh fuck, they were
sledgehammer.
Yes, it is like that. And they were a source of dopamine, and they were a source of, and actually my diagnosis with ADHD, I always knew. When Ross was, I didn't know it was ADHD. We didn't know about it, but I knew there was a different processing. I just knew it. I always described it as I was like behind a glass window, and I knew how to.
Stop it. This is how I described it to my counsellor.
That's so weird, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think isn't that like, because I learned to be an actor, right, from being young. And I learned that if I act this way, it gets a response. It's not by mistake when you look back. My first acting class was called Sit and Fidget, right? It wasn't a mistake. So everyone there was neurodivergent. And when I was safe on set, it was because of that, right? So when I met Ross, and Ross was late diagnosed, he was 26 when he was diagnosed, still before the new wave of understanding, and he absolutely embraced it. He loved it from the start. Everybody else thought it was an excuse for bad behavior, is what they would say. I've got a picture of Ross. He printed himself, because he did printing and embroidery, like stuff like this. He printed it himself a top saying autism rocks, and he would give them out to autistic people that he met and stuff. But that was well before people were saying autism rocks and understanding it. So I understood autism in a male perspective. Didn't understand it from Brooke's perspective until I understood it. But at the time, I remember looking through, you know, what we understood then and going, that's just not me. Like, I understand that stuff, and like, I don't think it's that. But I still felt like there was something there. It was only really because a few times in my life when I've been around, because I'm around thinky people, and some of them were psychiatrists, and somebody said to me, twice it happened at different periods, and I'd forgotten about it because I dismissed it as bad behaviour that I was displaying. Someone had said, you know you have ADHD, don't you? And I was like, what? No, I don't. What do you mean? I don't have ADHD. And I just didn't know what it meant. And I took it instantly as, what was I doing that made you say that? Like, I was being weird. I was upsetting somebody. I said something wrong. Or, you know, people would, would often say, and I think we mentioned this before we started press and record, where people would say, you're doing something weird and you're doing it on purpose to get attention. And I would, because I wanted to fit in. I was cosplaying as a neurotypical. Like, I knew I was trying to fit in. So I would then go, I was just showing off. Is that weird? Like, secretly to myself, it was internalizing this. You're showing something about you that's weird. Get back, act better, be a better actor. So I was always doing that. So when Ross had that, you know, diagnosis, and then when Ross died, you know, Ross, he was very good at money. He was very good at organising bank accounts. He was very good at the admin side of life. I would say probably actually Ross was ADHD now. He was diagnosed with Asperger's at the time. So they still diagnosed that when he was diagnosed, and the description was very different. But we understood where he was at. He was high masculine, low needs largely, and he had got to that point. He wasn't rocking the corner, quiet, autistic. He was direct, and he was inappropriate, and he was socially weird to people. But because he was so confident, he didn't feel it. He was fine with it. Other people weren't. So for me, when Ross died, obviously there were grief-related stuff to do with this as well. So, but what happened was, you know, before Ross and the kids, I was a free-reigning ADHD, feral, doing whatever, and bouncing around, creating businesses, doing acting, doing this, flitting about, leaving boyfriend, whatever, right? I was doing all the things. It didn't matter. It was just me. And then I got with Ross, and then we had kids, but it was still, before, you know, we were flitting about together. And then when we had kids, Ross was there to organise the boring stuff that I didn't want to do, and I would be...
So you could flit away happily.
When Ross wasn't there. Suddenly, I have to be the adult. Every day I have to make teas.
Oh, it's tedious, isn't it?
It's so boring. Like, I absolutely just being an adult and doing the house.
There is no dopamine in housework and things, is there?
I try to make it gamified. I do my best. And every time we get to the same bullshit of the house is an absolute hovel. And now I have to spend all day. I'm not going to eat or drink or anything else, and then tidy it. And I can't get any better.
And then there's a little dopamine, but it's not worth it.
It's not worth it. I'm exhausted. Nobody needs to speak to me for a bit. So, you know.
And then it looks like a shithole the next day as well. That's what I find really boring.
I try doing all of and then someone puts some more socks in the washing basket. It doesn't work, guys. It's fine. But I think those things, you know, those are things that, like, grief brings to the surface. And it brings to the surface all of your insecurities, all of your stuff, all of your coping mechanisms. Like, I realized for most of my life, I had learned to be the loudest, the most confident. I'll read the room quickly. I'll take charge of the room. Nobody's going to fucking touch me. And I'm going to mask heavily, and I will play a version that will work. And I learned all of it. And then when Ross got diagnosed, I was still in fight mode, and I built this armor, and this armor kept me safe. And it's not wrong, because it did keep me safe for a lot of years. It kept me safe when I was an actor. It kept me safe when I was going to a normal working class school and I was having to deal with being a kid on the telly. It kept me safe when I was dropped by Sony. It kept me safe. All of that kind of bravado and that, like, masking, it helped me. When Ross died, there was none of that. I knew, and I remember having this thought to myself, like, I need to let people help me here, and I have to be vulnerable, and that is so fucking scary to somebody who is independent to a fault. And I still struggle with that. I still struggle to not go, I'll just do it. I'll do it quicker, you'll be too slow. I
Yeah.
still struggle with it.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Yeah.
And I still do that too much. I still try and be, for example, this afternoon, one of my sons has got I've got it written down here, a guitar lesson at 4:30. The other one has to be at the orthodontist in a completely different town at 5:30. I'm still trying to figure out how I can do that. I can't do it. I can't. There's one of me. So it's also accepting you can't be the same version, the same parent. You can't be as competent perhaps as you were. And it's a massive period of adjustment. It really is.
I think so.
It really is. Now, Holly, during your grieving process, you actually have managed to kind of create a community for other people, haven't you? Which I just want to touch on a little bit, even though this is the longest episode ever, which I love. No, don't be sorry. I love it. So tell me a little bit about what you've done kind of to try and support other people and create a bit of a community around
Absolutely.
it.
When, as we said earlier, when Ross was dying, I knew I'm a person who needs to create, not consume in times of difficulty. And it's, I guess, quite ADHD, and I need to do. I don't sit, like, I'm an active rest person. So I wanted to put it into stuff, and I began writing stuff, and I began creating. And very early on, there was a lot of noise around Ross's death. So a lot of people would message me and they would say, how are you doing this? What do you do? I had done self-development stuff since I was a kid, because I was the kid on telly, and I learned, and I guess also the neurodivergent kid on the telly who was trying to understand, why am I different? I know I'm different. I know I'm not responding the same. Why do I feel like this? And I was doing things like, I really struggle with body dysmorphia. I was on TV 6 months of the year. I've got a makeup artist correcting my face for 7 years. All of my formative years was on TV before people had platforms and before we had filters and all of that. Like, it's just me. It was all of that awkward stage. And that TV shows just went on to ITV. So people keep sending me images of it. And I'm like, yay. Fuck's sake. But so all of that. So I was looking for, how do I feel more happy and less crappy, is how I put it in my work. Like, how do I feel? And we didn't have the same access to stuff. I was going to the library and I was getting Paul McKenna's hypnosis CDs or tapes out, and I was trying to work out our brain, and I was fascinated by our brains. I've always been fascinated by how do we, 100% special interest, right? Obsessed with it. And I always thought it was good for me as an actor, the highs and lows of that. And so I understood this stuff. And in the background, I'd done like some trainings for myself, and I was always at workshops, and all I read was self-development books and all of that. And then when Ross was diagnosed, I started to again talk about this, because I'm like, I need to protect my family. Like, I remember the moment when I was like, nobody's going to do this for us. Like, I have to protect everyone. I've got to protect our space. You're not going to tell me about your sister's cousin's dog's neighbour who had this and was so sick from chemo. Fuck off, Ross. No, Ross will decide how we do this, right? We'll do cancer in our own fucking weird way, right? We'll do it how we do it. And so I very much kind of started to talk about that a lot more, and people started to gravitate towards me. So during his illness, I was starting to go into the space of what I hate to call coaching, because it does feel it's a bit of a weird space now, but I was working with people on confidence and self-belief and mindset type stuff. And I was always bringing in the physical side of it as well, because I understood the impact of that side of it, even before I understood kind of somatic practices. I understood as an actor that how we physicalize something it changes the emotion in our body. When I was in the hospice, I needed something to do, and I had put this thing aside ages before. It was like a note in my notes app, and I think I'd started it and never done it right, obvs. And
but you've got a few in there. My notes app
is the ramblings of madmen. Like, it's crazy.
Somebody needs to clear it if I die, basically. My best friend, I was like, just wipe it.
I went on there the other day, and I had written at some point, really blonde eyebrows are weird. I don't know why, but it's in there. It's an important bit of note that I wrote down. I'm sorry, blondes, but I wrote it down. I don't know why.
It mattered at the time.
I probably was trying not to say it or something. That's probably that. And so I had written down the Happy Me project, and I was thinking, right, it's going to be this little course, and it'll be something dead easy. People can do a standalone course. So when Ross, I just sort of like, it was in my mind. I was writing some stuff on, that sort of stuff. And then when he died, I got all these messages. And then one day I just had this like ADHD, like, I'm going to do it now. So I grabbed it, envelope, bottom of the stairs, and a pen, and I just wrote down 21 things that you can do, because at the time it was like, oh, it takes 21 days to create a habit. It doesn't, but anyway, like, and certainly not if you're ADHD. You can just keep doing that and it will never become a habit. So I wish.
Brushing your teeth still feels
Yeah,
like a
I'm
chore,
thinking
right?
about every aspect.
Been doing that for
Yeah,
45 years.
some of us, we're never good. I've tried. Right, anyway. So I'm writing it down. I did this, got my phone, recorded some audios, did a couple of videos and put it out into the world. No pomp or ceremony. And within a few, a week, I was starting to see, it was a £30 course. I was sending it to people so I wanted to give them something. Like I wanted to go, I can't coach you. I'm grieving, but I don't want to give you nothing because these are stuff that will work. They're really low end. And I'm all about the gamifying. I'm all about the bite size. We haven't got brain space, especially not when we're grieving. And this was not specifically for people grieving. It was just, how do we feel more happy and less crappy? And I just noticed there was this need, and it had this like snowball effect. By the end of the year, I decided I would go and do some in-person stuff, and that was really nice. And there was a sort of want for it, and I started to do these like workshops. And then the next year, I took them around the country, and I did more around the country. And it felt like the most organic piece of work that I'd ever done, that it took on a life of its own. And for me, it's always been about, how do we simplify it? How do we make it fit into our real, actual lives? And I'm based it on my own, and similar to you, our own feral life, where there is no habit, there is no consistency, but there is persistency. We don't do consistency in my spaces, we do persistency. We'll get back up, we'll try again, but we will give ourselves grace that we will mess it up sometimes, but we're not going to be a dick to ourselves. And I think part of understanding my diagnosis helped that even more, because I stopped, like I always say, that I held the anxiety internally, this fear I was going to be found out, I was going to be called out for being weird, right? And then when I was diagnosed, I played with the idea of giving the anxiety back and just being myself even more than I had ever been. What happened was people said I was being more ADHD on purpose. And I was like, I'm giving you actually how I am. And before was an act. Like that was the act. This is me not holding that anxiety inside. You deal with it. If you don't like it, you don't like it. It's fine. And so I created a membership space, the Happy Me Project, which is still running, and people can join that right now. It's just a beautiful space where I go live 5 days out of 7, and we do bite-size sessions on a particular topic, a particular theme, whether it's resilience, confidence, self-belief. We might do a meditation, might do a story time. We need to get your book actually on a story time, because I'll
send you a copy. I'll get your address,
and we'll get you in to talk to them as well, because we have all different people come in and share their experiences, and it's a beautiful, a lovely little community. And so for me, that kind of, it took hold. And then so let me do just a quick plug of my book to show you, because it's all pretty and it's here. So the first book came out just after, I wrote this in lockdown, can you fucking believe it? And the reason, like, I wasn't diagnosed when I started writing this. I was at the end, and what's hilarious is I wrote it by mistake for ADHD people. So it's 60 chapters, but each page is 4 pages, and it's got loads of bullet points. And how I wrote it, like with the space in between, I know some people will be listening, but it's got space between each thought. So like paragraphs are separated, and that's how I write anyway. So I remember when I sent it to my publisher, and my editor was like, oh, do you want to keep the spaces? And I was like, well, yeah, otherwise I won't be able to read it. So
it's so interesting, because I wrote mine in a very similar style. It's very short chapters with some bullet points at the end, so you can quickly refer to what you need. And a friend of mine who's actually not widowed, but she's a journalist, so I sent it to her. Nobody was allowed to read this book. I sent it to her to read, and she was like, have you deliberately written this for neurodivergent people? And I was like, nope.
It's just who you are.
That's just how it's come out.
This is it. And it's so lovely, because I've had so many dyslexic people message me and say, I've read your book, I've never read a book before. And I'm like, that's so great. Yeah. So with the second book, so the second book is called Find Your Confidence, and it's a no-nonsense guide to self-belief. And with that, I used my acting background and my sort of well-being, intuitive psychology space. And each chapter is both the internal work to get there, but also the external side of that as well, the body language and all of that. So it's the kind of combining of the two sides of what I do. And over the last year or so, I'd always said, as I said at the beginning, I always have said, be your weirdest self. I would say it to my kids, be your weirdest self, the right people will come. When you are your weirdest self, you will attract your own band of weirdos, and they will be the best people to hang out with.
That's your tribe.
That's your
vibe attracts your tribe, and it's so true.
And so for me, that was also taking back of the word that had been levied against me and a lot of particularly neurodivergent people, but not exclusively, where something we've done has been dismissed and minimized, and we're weird, that's weird that you do that, and then we've hidden that because as a species, like, that's terrifying for our brain. We think, I'm going to be pushed out of the group,
We want to fit in. Yeah, that tribal
and
sense.
so
Yeah.
for me now, my work is very much about being your weirdest self, and in an aid to being more happy and less crappy, and feeling more happy, less crappy. And I work with both individuals, you know, in a well-being space to be their most unapologetic self, but also now working much more with entrepreneurs, because not only is there a sort of a mindset piece for entrepreneurs to get out in the world and be their weirdest self, but from the perspective of standing out in your space, the way that you win absolutely and easily are identifiable is by being your weirdest self. And so many people try to polish their edges and make it so that they, they're not doing it that way, and it's just not the way you win. So working with entrepreneurs is very exciting to me. One, also a lot of them are neurodivergent, so it's fun.
I feel like I need your help, actually, because as you were talking, and earlier you were saying about, people who are working in, trying to grow a business, but they're doing it without any payment because maybe they love what they're doing. Maybe they don't feel that they can add a value to it. Maybe they're doing something like we are, where we're working with grief and trauma, and therefore you think, oh God, well, I can't charge people for what I do. And actually you have to put a value 100%. On. So maybe we have a chat afterwards. And absolutely, I will put links to both of your books and things in your bio. Where can people find you if they want to find you directly? Just give me your Instagram and bits and pieces.
IamHollyMatthews.com is my website, and it's I am Holly Matthews on everything. And I always say, if you can't find me on the internet, then your internet is broken, because a little Google, you're going to find all sorts. I'm sure you Googled before. I mean, I dread to think what is on the internet. And now we've got AI. So it's such a grass. AI is such a little snitch. It just tells you everything. It tells you all. I mean, reminds me of things I don't remember I've done. So there is a lot. I mean, how old are you? I don't know how old you are.
I'm 45.
Oh, yes, so we are older than the internet. We're older.
I said this to my friends the other day. I've got two friends I was with, and they're both in their 30s. And I said, do you remember a time before the internet? And they just looked at me and went,
I can't remember what the cut, but I know I'm grandma millennial. So you might be just at the next one.
I'm just on the cusp. I'm 81, so I just make it into millennial.
So we're grandma millennial, and so we lived before the internet, before social media, and after. And there's pros and cons in understanding all of that. But it's if you can't find something about me online and a way to contact me, and there's something wrong with the internet. You've typed it.
Your internet provider has blocked you.
I'm sure you. And just come and say hello. Let me know you've come from this podcast as well, because this is a very exclusive, club. None of us asked to be in, and there is a level, I think, of understanding of each other, and we might not understand, and we might do it differently, and that's okay. But there's an understanding of big loss and cutting the bullshit that only widows can really understand.
And I'm very fortunate that the kind of community that I've built around the podcast, they're good people, and it's interesting you say that the title of the podcast is deliberate. I wanted my vibe to attract my tribe, and by having the word fuck in the title,
litmus test. Like, I say swearing is my litmus test, because if I walk into a room and I say fuck and that room recoils, it ain't my room. Because if you can't deal with that, I promise you can't deal with the real shit that's going on. Like, that's the least of.
I've got a massive poster in my hallway that says do epic shit on it, and sometimes when my friends' kids come round, they're a bit like, I swear, and they're like, it's fine, it's Rosie's house, just don't do it at home.
There's consequence. That's what I say to my girls. You've got to learn more words. When they were little, I used to say you can swear when you're griefy, but like outside of that, you've got to earn it. You've got to tell me a new word.
That's what I say.
Yeah, you do. You've got to learn the other words. Read more books, learn more words, and then you can say fuck. That's a fair thing.
And sometimes it's a really solid word. I love the word fuck. Oh, Holly, do you know what? We have been talking for nearly 2 hours, and I could probably probably pull out another 2 from this. I don't want to stop talking to you. You are absolutely captivating. And the way you speak about your grief and your parenting journey and about the work that you've done since is, and I use this word quite sparingly, but it is inspiring. So thank you so much for coming to talk to me today. I feel like I've made a friend. I really want to stay in touch with you. For any of you that have been listening, want to reach out, Holly's given you her name and her details and where you can find her. Remember, your internet's broken if you can't. And you can find me, as always, at widowed_AF on Instagram or widowedaf.com. So it is goodbye now from me and Holly, and I wish you all the best of weeks. I hope you're doing all right out there. I'm thinking of you. Take care of yourselves and, of course, of each other. Lots of love from me and lots of love from Holly. Bye-bye, guys. Thank you. Thank you for listening. If you found this episode helpful, hit follow or subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And if you think someone else may benefit from this, please do share. We'd also really appreciate a quick review. It helps more people find the show. Thank you again, and see you next time on Widowed AF.